Assassin's Creed 4, the sixth mainline entry and the prequel to Assassin's Creed 3. Yeah, this game. My name's Plasma Assassin, and here's my 6.5 year late review on Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. Now first off, I'd like to point out that while this game did come out in 2013, for the most part the visuals have held up. Not necessarily as a high quality game, but it's roughly around average in most aspects. What I do still think is high quality, however, is the views that the game offers you, particularly in the cities and when in the travel speed of your ship. Like, look at this title screen, it's freaking beautiful. Now, let's start with the most important stuff. The story. This guy, yeah, this one right here. This is Edward Kenway, father to this prick, and grandfather to him. Yeah, him. So, apart from being the protagonist, he's a bit of a big league in terms of the Assassin's Creed lineage. Not quite as high as our first two protagonists, Altair and Ezio by the way, but still pretty important. He's our protagonist for Black Flag, and a pirate who in this universe is right up there with the most powerful and influential pirates in history, even above the mighty Blackbeard. Yet he still pales in comparison to the true greatest pirate in history. You history buffs know what I mean. Alongside Edward is your quartermaster, Adewale, who you meet once you get your ship, the mighty jackdaw of which was named after a bird in Edward's home. Now, Adewale's involvement for most of the story is reminding Edward that he's on a fool's errand and some disapproving glances and stares. Nothing against the man, I actually love him for everything he says and does, including out of cutscenes and story stuff, which is honestly where he's strongest in my own opinion. The Jackdaw, on the other hand, is a bit more important, if only because it's the only ship you use for about 99% of a game about pirates. Because for as much as they've incorporated it into the lore and added stuff from nearly every game before it, this is a pirate game at its core, which brings us back to one of the reasons Edward became a pirate. His lovely wife, Caroline, who is shown in flashbacks that Edward experiences and is one of the reasons that he became a pirate, to be able to give them both the life that Edward believes they deserve. Further on, there are many side characters from the Templars, Assassins, and the Pirates that influence Edward in many different ways, slowly dragging the morality out of him, albeit kicking and screaming until the final very end act. Moving on to the story, it starts with a tutorial on basic ship combat before showing the first flashback introducing us to Caroline, the beautiful, supportive but worried wife that she is. Immediately upon leaving the flashback, we get introduced to the real story hidden within this pirate game. Edward meets Mr. Duncan Walpole, a traitorous assassin on his way to give both an item and a map of assassin outposts to the Templars within Havana. However, he never makes it, as he annoyed Edward, so he must die like the heathen that he is. On a side note, however, how the hell does Edward manage to wear this bulky-ass fucking assassin's uniform in the middle of what assumes to be a very tropical area? Like, right here, you can see him, like, wiping his head off a few seconds after putting on the uniform. How does he survive? Then you meet Bonnet, a bumbling merchant who ends up caught up in Edward's lies and piracy while in Havana before leaving and becoming a semi-recurring character later on in the story for some comedy. After swimming to Bonnet's ship, you then get the tutorial of ship movement, then the greatest title card ever. Havana is where you anchor, and it's your real introduction to what ground gameplay there is, at least if you follow the main story. A big bustling city with lots of collectibles, and where Edward Duncan Walpole Kenway delivers the items to the Templars himself to get a nice payday. Then learns about the MacGuffin of the story, the Observatory, and the MacGuffin to get the MacGuffin, the Sage. After learning about this, they get attacked. The Sage escapes, and then after recapturing the Sage and handing him back over, Edward is given his pay and promptly disappointed and pissed off. So, he decides to go to the Sage himself and find the observatory to sell it to the highest bidder. Only the Sage has escaped himself, and the Templars have discovered Edward's treachery and captured him. The next time we see him is besides Adewale in a prison ship, of which they escape so easily it makes me wonder how the hell slaves or prisoners were ever a viable option when all you have to do to escape is something as simple as banging the end of the pole against the restraints. How? Fun fact as well, you don't actually need to get all 4 of the pirate groups when escaping the prisoner ships if you don't care about the optional quests. One of them can just be completely skipped over to reach the 18 prisoner minimum, leaving those poor prisoners to their fates. That fate being the hurricane you now have to outsail. Hope you have fun with that, because the wind and high waves love to fuck with your directioning, so you need to constantly be managing that, while also trying to navigate around water funnels and tidal waves which can kill you if you don't avoid them. After this mission, the story devolves into doing a mixture of pirate stuff and assassin stuff, though that's more towards the very end. Most of the story revolves around either chasing the Sage around, trying to find the observatory, or helping out the other pirates you meet at Nassau. During all of this, you play an unnamed employee of Abstergo Industries who is recording footage on the Sample 17 line, a nice little nod to those who have played the earlier mainline games. You can choose at any time to leave your Animus and hack into other employees' Animuses to get Easter eggs and extra information on the world and lore, which I thought was a pretty nice touch. Now, onto the gameplay. In terms of gameplay, this game is incredibly enjoyable whether you're looking at ground or sea gameplay. It can get a bit repetitive in terms of the sea, but it balances itself for nearly the whole campaign before beginning to get grating. Both types of gameplay feature collectibles and side activities to make things more entertaining, such as synchronizations, which allow you to figure out the layout of the land and where all the collectibles and activities within a certain radius are located. The sea also has a similar feature, but with a basic combat trial, which are called fortresses, where you can get the benefits of a synchronization after damaging the fortress and killing select individuals on the ground. In terms of land gameplay, the main side activity is bounties, where you pick the bounties up and kill an individual to get some money. Surprisingly, it's more effective than becoming something boring, like a guard. You get added money for remaining undetected, but depending on the layout of the guards, it can honestly just be easier to kill them, get detected, and run away. Bounties are also available in sea gameplay, and pretty much just the same thing, but with taking down certain ships. And, as you can see here, when you're trying to run away, it's best to choose not to just climb straight up, as when you get shot during parkour, you will fall, and it can hurt. In addition to bounties, when sailing in the open ocean, you can also stop in at islands and hunt animals, or find certain areas out in the ocean where you can harpoon big fish. Both of these allowing you to craft upgrades such as extra pistols, ammo, and health. There's also diving bells, which is just a way to get extra money and a fun little side activity. There's also technically the fleet management, but really that's just a way to passively get money with almost no extra work on your end. Huzzah for trade! There's also customization options for Edward and the Jackdaw, which are mainly just for appearances, but taking down ships gives you resources to upgrade the Jackdaw with better defenses and weaponry, so that's fun. In addition, there's also legendary ships you can fight, one in each corner of the map, and then a fifth just roaming around in the hard sections of the sea map, but I wouldn't suggest fighting them. See these ships here? How they have levels? The legendary ships are all level 75, so even fully upgraded you could get your shit rocked hard. Now, onto the negative things I have to say. While there aren't many, the 4 stealth sections are absolute hell to get through due to the game's focus on un-assassin stuff, or maybe that's just me, who knows. But it feels forced, and while they aren't actually difficult if you take your time, it turns what's generally a pretty mild to fast-paced game into a slugfest for admittedly only a few minutes. Hey, I said negative things I have to say, not necessarily game-breaking. Also, the main loop, while fun, gets incredibly boring after a while, which isn't necessarily what you want in a game with as many collectibles and activities as Black Flag has. There's also the glitches and bugs, but any game as large as Assassin's Creed 4 is bound to have a few, and anyone who's even remotely heard of Ubisoft in a passing statement has probably also heard about the glitches and bugs in their games, most notably the Assassin's Creed series, so that's just kicking the studio while they're down at this point. And now, onto my final thoughts. If somebody in 2020 asked me if I would still recommend Assassin's Creed 4 to friends or just random people, I would still say yes. It's a little bit outdated, but I do believe it's one of the best entries into the Assassin's Creed franchise, and that the game still has a lot to offer even now. But other than that, that has been my Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag review. A big fuck-off mess of thoughts, opinions, and jokes for a first-time review that's hopefully been put nicely in a box and tied off. I hope you all enjoyed.